What up, guys? Today I want to talk about why Goku trains harder than Vegeta. And I know a lot of Vegeta fanboys are getting mad. They're going to be like, oh, no, no, Goku does not train harder than Vegeta. It's a common known fact that Vegeta trains harder than him. And that isn't true. The only reason people say he trains harder than him is because people like Vegeta more than Goku usually. And it's most of these Vegeta fanboys who bring up this BS argument that he trains harder than Goku and that the only reason Goku is stronger than him is because he's the main character and he has plot armor and he's a plot device and all this other crap. And they make countless excuses for why Goku is stronger than Vegeta, and they don't want to accept that Goku just trains harder and better than him. And I already made a video talking about the difference between their training styles and how Goku's training style is far more adaptive, and his is more intelligent and more in depth, whereas Vegeta's is very good, but the problem with it is very straightforward and it's very hard-headed, and he doesn't work with others, so he doesn't really grow that much. But that's not going to be the main focus in this video. This is the video I'm going to just talk about specifically who trains harder between these two. And like I said, I think Goku 100% trains harder than Vegeta. And I know a lot of Vegeta fanboys are going to say, what do you mean? Haven't you seen all these times where Vegeta trained super hard? And it's like, yeah, but Goku's also trained really hard. And there's also a lot of times where throughout the past, even with stuff that we haven't seen, where Vegeta didn't really train. So I'll be going through all of that. But before I get into that, I do want to give a big shout out to a new subscriber by the name of Oily Atlas. So big shout out to you for subscribing to this channel. I also want to state that I'll be making a power scaling video on the Bleachverse in the future. It's going to take some time for me to get that video out, but I'll definitely be doing that soon. So stay tuned for that. So now let's get back into this. And I want to go through my arguments on why Goku trains harder than Vegeta. And for me to do that, I'm going to go throughout all of, Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z and talk about what they did throughout their years since they were a child to this point when it came to their training. Now, when it comes to Goku, we saw his whole journey throughout Dragon Ball and Vegeta wasn't there. He was in Dragon Ball Z later, but throughout all of Dragon Ball, we just see, Goku. But we do get mentions of Vegeta and his early life and what he did with his training. And we did get a little bit of a glimpse and showing what he did in Z. So we do see a little bit of younger Vegeta in his training. Now for Goku, he was training under, Grandpa Gohan, and even when Grandpa Gohan was dead, even after that, he was still training. So it's not like he just stopped because his grandpa died, but he was still training. And then throughout all of Dragon Ball, he's getting stronger and training with Master Roshi, training by himself, going with other people, training under supposedly Kami, but it was pretty much Popo. Kami didn't even know that much about his training. And then throughout Dragon Ball Z, he had multiple times where he trained with different masters in different techniques in different ways, and he pushed himself very far. Now, Vegeta, since he doesn't have like something like Dragon Ball where we see the whole scope of his early childhood, where we could see all that training on like Goku, I guess it's not kind of fair, but we do get explanation a little bit. We get explained that when Vegeta was born, he was the strongest Saiyan in Saiyan history. He was stronger than even his own father. He had a power level of like around 12,000. By the time he arrived to Earth, he had a power level of 18,000. So his power didn't grow significantly. It grew by half of his original power, but that's not that much, seeing as how at that time he was like a 6-year-old. And by the time we get to, when he arrived to, Earth, I'm pretty sure he was somewhere around his like mid-20s or past that, because because then of Dragon Ball, Goku was 18 or 19, and 5 years had passed, so Goku was around like 23 or 24, and Vegeta was like 6 years older than him, so he probably was around 30 years old or somewhere around that range. So that with even with all that time passing, he barely got stronger, and they did explain the fact that Vegeta didn't really train, and that's why he even himself mentioned that he didn't usually train. The only thing he would do is go to other planets and wipe them out. And yes, that might sound like this very impressive training, but remember, he would go there with Nappa and Raditz, and they would go to weaker planets of beings that were never really a challenge in beating them. Whereas Goku, on the other hand, even though he was way weaker, he was fighting against more higher levels of challenges, and he was getting trained by other people and doing a bunch more training. Whereas Vegeta was just wiping out countless planets of weaklings. And we do see a little bit of his training as a child, so it's not like he didn't completely train, but his training was against Cybermen, which are around Raditz's level, and even Kid Vegeta, like we stated, had a power level of 12,000, so he was 10 times stronger than, Raditz, which would mean he would be 10 times stronger than even the Cybermen, and he was fighting like a few of them, and he was easily bodying them, so that wasn't really that hard training. Whereas Goku, yes, his opponents were way weaker than the Cybermen, but proportional to his strength, they were definitely higher than him. And Goku always sought out challenges that were bigger than him. Whereas Vegeta, on the other hand, only conquered planets and dominated places that the life forms weren't that strong. And if they were, it would take quite a bit of time and they would just rely on their, Uzara form. So Vegeta really didn't train for most of his life. So I don't know why people keep on saying, he trained so hard. He trained so hard. I know we didn't get to see his past, but we do get explanation and we get a little bit of a glimpse in what he did. And when you see it, it's not that impressive compared to what Goku did. Goku literally, Goku was fighting against multiple threats. He was trying to challenge himself. Vegeta didn't care about that. He didn't even care about training. That's why when he arrived to Earth, he was talking trash to Goku, saying that you're a low-class Saiyan and a low-class Saiyan cannot beat an elite because I was born strong and you had to work for it. No matter how much you train, you can never surpass me. And Goku's like, no, with a ton of training, you can. And that's why that was the whole point of that story arc, which a lot of people keep on forgetting for some reason, because people keep on saying that Goku was born, he was naturally gifted. It was not fair. It's like, no, are you guys stupid? It was the exact opposite. Goku was born with a complete disadvantage, where Vegeta was born with a complete advantage. Vegeta was born as the strongest Saiyan in history, besides, Broly would later on. But just in general, he was considered the strongest Saiyan in history, whereas Goku was considered to be the weakest Saiyan in history. He had a power level of 2, so don't give me that bullshit of Goku was, he just biologically this. No. If anybody has a fucking biological advantage, it was goddamn Vegeta. Stop with the bullshit. He had the advantage early on and he didn't capitalize on it, whereas Goku was training throughout his entire life. Vegeta relied solely on his natural power and his natural talent, whereas Goku had to obtain his skills and, develop himself. So don't give me that bullshit. That shit always pisses me off. I'm like, you guys, do you even fucking pay attention to the series? Because this is the complete exact opposite of what we've been shown about Goku. He was the one that was not born with that. Vegeta was the more luckier one. Like, Goku had like a mutation that gave him a birth defect, technically, where it lowered his power significantly. So don't give me that bullshit, right? And he had all the time, even with that massive amount of power, to get insanely stronger, but he only got barely stronger than what he was before. If that was Goku in his position, Goku would have got astronomically higher. And we do see Vegeta's power getting higher after their first fight, but it was through a different means. Whereas Goku was training and, in his spaceship with the 100 times Earth's gravity, he was going up levels and training. He was busting his ass off, which a lot of people also undermine his level, because people keep on saying, well, Vegeta trained really hard to his body's failure. Goku, when he was arriving to Namek, was literally training to the point where he was near death. Every time he was near death, he was taking a senzu bean to heal himself up, and he was training so close to nearly dying. He was firing energy attacks against himself and high levels of gravity, which already put pressure on his body, hitting himself with it, nearly dying, crawling, even to a point where he could only move his chin and had to crawl with his chin. That's how fucking crazy he was. Whereas Vegeta, once when he got to, Namek, the only training really he did was the Sensei Ki, which isn't really a physical training. It's not that severe, right? But once when he got there, all he did was rely on his Zenkai boost, which is his biology, and that's not really training. All he did was get beaten up by people and get revived. He even had Krillin blast him to lower his power and then heal him up so he can get an insane power boost. Whereas Goku, from coming from Earth to there, was busting his ass off the entire time. Even Vegeta acknowledged he must have trained like crazy to get this much amount of power. So it's not like Goku was, casually just training a bit here or there. He was busting his ass off. He trained throughout the entire time. The only time he didn't train was the last day, to let his body just rest and recover, and to save up obviously senzu beans for when he arrives to give it to whoever needs it. But Goku was busting his ass off the entire time. Vegeta was just relying on his biology. So he wasn't even training throughout the Namek saga or the Frieza saga. And the only time Goku really severely relied on just solely his, Zenkai boost. Obviously, some people say, well, he was doing that when he was training, but he was still training mostly. The only time he really just solely relied on Zenkai boost is when he came from the, space pod or the healing pod to fight against Frieza, but that was it. And then he had to go through quite a bit of an ass whooping just to unlock Super Saiyan. But then after that, Vegeta only started to actually properly train in the beginning, or it was a weird point where it was getting to the beginning of the Android saga, but it wasn't there yet, but it was definitely after the Frieza saga. But at that point, that's when Vegeta actually started training, when it came around the Android saga. So basically, the second to last arc of Z, whereas Goku already trained in all those other parts. And that's when he actually started to train and he was doing the gravity chamber training and all that stuff. But Goku was also training in Yard Rad. We didn't get to see him train, but he was training while using his Super Saiyan form and to get a better handle of that, and also trying to learn instant transmission, which is very quite a difficult technique to learn. But Goku was putting in work still, and Vegeta was definitely putting in work. He was putting work a lot, but this was the first time he actually started to severely train and push himself. Whereas Goku's been doing that prior to that, and in the Yard Ride he was training quite hard. And then when the what's the thing called? Then when Trunks showed up, right? As he showed up, he told them, he warned them about the androids. They had 3 years of training. Goku was now training with Piccolo, who was really pretty powerful himself. He was able to handle, second form Frieza at least, and he was training with him and Gohan, so he was not being easy there either. He was busting his ass off. Vegeta was definitely training harder, but with that harder training, Vegeta did obtain more power because when he came back to Earth, he finally unlocked Super Saiyan, and then he surpassed Goku. So for people to say Goku just has plot armor, or they just give him BS power-ups and Vegeta works hard, but he doesn't get the same thing, as like, that's bullshit. Because prior to that one, Goku already had Super Saiyan for 4 years at that point. He already mastered it within that 1 year and was training and busting his ass off. And even with all that extra amount of time with training, already having high level of power compared to Vegeta, Vegeta would just training in those 3 years was able to not only unlock Super Saiyan 1, but surpass him. So that was not plot armor. If that was the case, Vegeta would still been beneath him, but Vegeta surpassed him. So if anything, Vegeta did get actually, his just deserves, because it's not like he busted his ass off and then didn't surpass him. He even surpassed him, even though Goku already had the advantage of those multiple years of training prior to Vegeta and even a higher level of power. Yet Vegeta was able to not only close the gap, but surpass it. So I don't want you guys to sit here and complain to me, giving me like some bullshit about how he busted his ass off for this hard and he only got, he never surpassed Goku. No, he did. When he really trained his ass off, he finally got Super Saiyan and surpassed him. Even though Goku should have technically been stronger, but he surpassed him. And then when we get to Goku coming back, and they went into the hyperbolic time chamber, this is where we see the significance of difference of, training. People assume that, well, Vegeta was solely training by himself, so he was training harder than Goku. Goku was just most of the time wasting it on trying to get Gohan to go Super Saiyan. And yes, at first you could argue Vegeta was training harder, but by the time he got Gohan to go Super Saiyan 1, he was actually training harder than Vegeta. And the reason why he was training harder than Vegeta was due to the fact that, yes, Vegeta was training hard, but he was in training with, Trunks. Trunks was already a Super Saiyan. If he trained with Trunks, he would have had a powerful sparring partner and a powerful opponent to go based off of. If he fought against him and trained against Trunks himself, that would have gave him a significant, jump in power. Even if he didn't do the whole Master Super Saiyan thing, it would have at least jumped his power even further, and also would have, it would have been way more hard work to fight somebody who's on your level. So, yes, he was working hard, but if he got, Trunks on his level and trained with him, that would have been even more of, hard work. Whereas Goku, yes, at first, he wasn't doing as much as hard work because he was more focused on getting Gohan's power up so he can match it. But when he did, Gohan was now an actual competitor threat, and they were going back and forth and fighting. That is far more intense than just, oh, I'm training by myself. It's more intense to get somebody onto your level or somebody really good and spar with them constantly, keep on fighting you over and over and over again while also trying to maintain your control and your power, right? That is hard work. So what Goku did with Gohan at first, it wasn't hard work, but when he got to that level and started sparring with them, that is far more hard work than what Vegeta did. If it comes to being in those situations, doing Vegeta's one where he trains by himself is far easier to do than constantly spar or fight against somebody who's on your level in terms of power, because now you're getting your ass whooped and handed and going back and forth with somebody who's just as strong as you. So he even in there trained harder, and not only did he train harder, but he also trained smarter. That's why he has significant jump in power, because he actually relied on his son as a sparring partner and wanted to fight somebody on his level. Whereas Vegeta, even though Trunks was on his level or even around somewhere around there, he didn't care to, match up with him and have a fight. He was all about himself solo. So Goku also in that arc surpassed him not because of BS plot armor. It was because of one, he had a stronger training partner, which gave him more of a challenge. And then two, he was also smarter with his training methods of having not only creating a spar partner that's on his level, but also maintaining Super Saiyan as regular base, which would also put heavy strain on his body constantly being in Super Saiyan, which would even be way more harder than what Vegeta did. So we already have that. And then we have all the way to, the Buu Saga. A lot of people say, well, in the Buu Saga, Vegeta trained harder. What do you mean by he trained harder? Because we didn't get to see them train at all. Okay, they had a fat time skip, and all we saw was Vegeta going back into the gravity chamber. And what was he doing? All he was doing was pretty much using 150 times Earth's gravity. Before that, he was using 350 times Earth's gravity or somewhere around there. Even when he was injured, he was still moving, which I'll give him that. He was trained really tough, but Goku was doing that the entire time when he was getting to Namek, just with a lesser, gravity. But he was weaker than Vegeta when Vegeta first got in, so it kind of like evens out that at least. But when we get to the Blue Saga, we don't see any of them train, so I don't think that's not really fair to say who trained harder. But looking at how Vegeta was basically once again training by himself, and what was he doing? He was training the gravity chamber and 150 times, which is way weaker than what he was doing before. So he was training on a far lesser level, and he was in Super Saiyan on top of it, and just by himself. And yes, he did it for 7 years, and they stayed training hard. And he did get a decent power jump, but he wasn't busting his ass off. And he's sitting here saying, even though I trained my ass off so much, for some reason, you still surpassed me. It's just a power I couldn't reach because you were just born gifted. I'm like, shut up, fucking, like, dude, shut up. You were literally training at 150 times your scrap. You could have gone way harder. You were not, once again, you were not training with somebody who was on your level. So you were not trying to push yourself. Goku, the whole point of him getting stronger is he keeps on challenging threats that are beyond him or on his level and keeps on pushing himself. Vegeta doesn't push himself and then surprised why he can't surpass Goku or doesn't get a significant jump in power. And instead of blaming himself for that, he blames, Goku being having an unfair advantage. Like, get the fuck out of here, bro. Goku, if you train like him where you were going against threats that were stronger than you, constantly challenging yourself, pushing yourself to your limit, you would have gotten it. And that also showcases that he doesn't train that hard, of he's not challenging himself, of he's not pushing himself to his limit. How is him constantly just training at 150 times Earth's gravity where his body is so easily accustomed to as hard training? Even Goku, when he got to Namek at 100 times Earth's gravity, which is just 50% less than what Vegeta is doing, was doing that in base, and he said, I don't feel the 100 times Earth's gravity anymore. I feel so light. I feel like it's nothing anymore. So it felt like nothing for him. What do you think is going to feel like for Super Saiyan Vegeta at that point? It's not going to feel like it's going to feel like even less than nothing. So why would we consider that such hard training? You wasted your entire time, 7 years, not pushing yourself, doing basic 150 times Earth's gravity in Super Saiyan. And then the most you did sparring was with your son a little bit. And once when he hit you, you got mad. Whereas Goku, at Afterlife, yes, he had the advantage with the fact that, he didn't have to worry about his energy consumption and this and that, but he also still trained harder because he won in a tournament. He was fighting against the strong competitors there. He was doing a bunch of stuff. Vegeta was just solely relying on the gravity chamber, which it's fine, but it's like it just became a crutch for him. But he relied on the gravity chamber for one, and then two, he didn't really raise up the power even higher. He put it on a far lower level, which his body should be easily be able to accustom to. Seeing as like how it said that base Goku all the way back in the Namek saga while he got to Namek could handle that. So 50% more, like, come on, man. Yeah, Super Saiyan, you should be able to handle more than this. So that's why Goku also surpassed him at that point. And then the only way where he thought he could surpass him is by, turning to like Majin Vegeta. So no point throughout all of Dragon Ball Z did Vegeta train harder than Goku. And then when we go through Super, yes, he's trained far better now, but Goku and him are basically doing the same amount of training. It's not like they're doing anything different. And usually, even though sometimes Goku surpasses Vegeta and Vegeta sometimes surpasses him, it's usually just through transformations and abilities and more so than power. And then usually after each arc, they pretty much, their powers even out. So it's not like Goku has some unfair BS advantage or whatever. So they're trained pretty much the same in there. So the argument can only work for Dragon Ball Z, and since I went through all the arcs in Dragon Ball Z with these two in there, and even prior to that, you can see that Goku did definitely train significantly harder than Vegeta has ever done in his life. Vegeta, for majority of his life, didn't train, and by the time he did start training, he did train hard for a bit. But when he did train hard, he did get significant boost in power and even surpassed Goku. So it was not like he just got shafted or whatever. And then, past that, he started relying solely on the gravity machine, and then he got very easy and complacent on it, whereas Goku didn't. And Goku, on the other hand, had smarter training methods, and he had sparring partner because when Vegeta went back to the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, he went back to the same shit. He wasn't sparring again. He went actually this time solo, so he wasn't pushing himself. Goku keeps on pushing himself. How are you going to say the guy who challenges threats that are more powerful than him and putting himself in more dangerous situations doesn't train as hard as the guy who does not push himself, who does not fight against people who are stronger than him? Only in Super did he get significant boost in power because he keeps on sparring with either Whis, Beerus, or Goku. He's sparring now, and that's where he's getting massive jumps in power. So training by yourself is nowhere near as hard as training with a sparring partner and having them fight back with you. Sparring is the best form of training you can have. Obviously, you can train by yourself by doing like, pad work, even though there's somebody there, but they're just holding it. So you can do pad work, you can hit, the punching bag, you can even lift some weights if you're doing it to build muscle for fighting. So that will strengthen you up, but that can only help you out so much. If you truly want to improve yourself as a fighter or physically, is to spar. That's the best way to do it. But those other methods are just not as effective as that. So no, Vegeta never ever trained harder than Goku. Goku trained smarter than him, trained harder than him, trained more consistently than him, trained more in early age than him, trained with different people, learned more, and on top of it, he did not have any plot armor. Whenever Vegeta surpassed him, it's not like Vegeta worked way harder. He just did the decent amount of work that he had to. And when Goku was surpassing him, it's because he was training harder than him and smarter than him and already had an advantage of already in power at that point because of how hard he trained prior to that. So it's not like, Vegeta just trains super hard and then just doesn't accomplish his goals, whereas Goku barely trains and then he gets it. Goku busts his ass off to get what he wants. Vegeta trains hard sometimes and gets what he wants, and then other times he doesn't train as hard and surprise, he doesn't get what he doesn't get what he wants and doesn't get as strong as he wants. So if you pick up more of Goku's training method and bust his ass off as much as him, he would definitely be significantly stronger and possibly pass Goku, but he relies solely on, cheap tricks or falling back on like, his basic form ways of thinking and like, training itself as a whole. So yeah, I don't want to hear these arguments anymore about Vegeta trains harder. That's just some BS Vegeta fanboys had made up just so they can complain about why Vegeta is unfairly and unjustly, getting surpassed by Goku and he doesn't deserve it. And Goku's just BS. He's the main character. It's just incorrect all the way there. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed and stay tuned for next time.